Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
We've got to talk. Ambush came on a Sunday evening as we were getting ready to go to bed. I suppose I shouldn't have been surprised as Jeanette, my wife of 4 years, had been acting strange all weekend. I asked her several times if she was not feeling well. No, I feel okay. I just have a lot on my mind. To tell the truth, so did I. The Great Recession had dealt both of our careers setbacks, and we went from having enough money to make dreams come true to barely making it. Not that any of our colleagues were doing any better. Jeanette, however, was having a hard time accepting our financial setback. She grew up without and had gotten used to the niceties to which we availed ourselves, including an annual vacation. She never came right out and blamed me, but then I could hear it in the comments that peppered any discussion of our finances. I wrapped my arms around Jeanette and told her how much I loved her. She didn't return the sentiment. Instead, she did something completely out of character. She got up and poured herself a stiff shot of scotch. She didn't offer me one. I immediately knew she had something big and bad to tell me, and she was trying to work up the courage to start. After dinner, we watched TV in silence the rest of the evening. I have no idea what programs were on. All I could do was worry about my wife. We went upstairs without watching the news. That usually meant we were going to make love. Tonight wasn't usually. Unfortunately, neither had any night during the last 3+ weeks. Our love life was a casualty of the economy. I was finishing brushing my teeth when she walked into the bathroom and announced, "Someone at work invited me on an all-expense-paid ski holiday in Colorado. One of the group had to beg off, and the tickets are non-refundable. We're leaving Wednesday morning, and I'll be back on Monday." I rinsed my mouth and replied, "Someone at work." Now that's a curious way to phrase it. It makes me believe it was a man who asked you. Jeanette looked guilty as all hell. "I think you answered my question. So what is the name of the man at work who invited you, a married woman, to go on vacation with him?" I tried to remain calm. "You don't know him. I thought I knew everyone you work with." "You do. But I don't exactly work with him." "Now you have me confused. You said someone from work." "No, I didn't." She protested. "I said someone at work." "Okay, Bill Clinton. Cut the it depends on what the meaning of the word is bullshit. Who's the son of a bitch that invited you to go on vacation?" "He's someone I met in the cafeteria at work. His office is on the 5th floor, and we've had lunch together a few times." I tried real hard not to lose control, but my voice filled the room. "How long have you been having an affair?" Jeanette began crying. In between sobs, she managed to say, "I would never cheat on you." "How can you say something that hurtful?" "Maybe because you forgot to mention you've been having lunch with another man, or that you became such good friends he invited you, a married woman, to go skiing in Colorado with him, and we haven't made love in almost a month. I think that about covers it." "It's not like that. He's a real nice guy, but his girlfriend dumped him, and he doesn't want to waste a ticket. Everything is already paid for. Hotel, lift tickets. It won't cost me anything. Isn't that convenient?" "Now what is his name?" I thundered. "John." "Does John have a last name?" "Johnson or Jackson, something like that." "You've got me so upset I can't think." "So, you want to fly across country with a man whose name you don't even know. You're either screwing him or you're an idiot." The volume and passion of the argument exploded. At some point I asked, "Who exactly are these friends you'll be sharing this cabin with?" "Friends of John's. There's 2 other couples." "2 other couples? That means you're going as his date?" "No. I keep telling you he doesn't want to waste the non-refundable ticket. So, he asked a married woman to be his date. Why don't you trust me? Would you trust me if I told you I met a woman in the cafeteria and she invited me to go on vacation with her?" "Yes." "Bullshit. Remember how jealous you got when I was explaining the infield fly rule to that beautiful woman sitting next to us at Wrigley Field last summer? You started a fight with her. The ushers threw us out of the ballpark. That was different. You were ignoring me." "Oh, and you're not going to be ignoring me when you're sharing a cabin with John and 4 total strangers." Jeanette screamed, then stormed out of the room. That was a long, sleepless night. Jeanette and I tossed and turned until about 2 when we both collapsed into sleep. I was up at 6 and had a pot of coffee brewed. She poured a cup, took a sip, threw it in the sink, and said, "I'm going to work." I knew when my wife dug in her heels, she would rather lose and I than admit she was wrong. She was the most stubborn person I ever met. I spent the drive into work formulating a plan to save my marriage. I knew appealing to logic wouldn't work. This called for a good swift kick in the pants, as my grandmother would say. About a year ago, I took a chance hiring a street-smart young man who served time in the county jail for robbing a convenience store. He kept reminding me that he owed me big time for taking a chance on an ex-con. "You say it, boss, and I'll do it." I decided to call in that marker. "Julio, I need a favor. Tell me what it is, and it's done." I explained my predicament to Julio. "You want me to mess him up?" "Maybe later, but first I need his name and where he works." I gave him a picture of my wife and the address of her office building. "There's a cafeteria in the basement. She goes to lunch every day at noon. I need you to get a picture of John without being spotted. When he's done eating, I want you to follow him upstairs and see where he goes." Get me the name of his employer. Got it, boss. Then at quitting time, I want you follow him and get the license plate number of his car. I'm your man, boss. And Julio, don't worry, I'll take care of your time card. I kept checking my watch. I was sure Jeanette would meet up with her boyfriend to tell him how unreasonable I was. It was a typical Monday. I was snowed under with work, but time dragged by. At 1:10 my phone rang. Boss, it's me. I got the picture. They were talking, but I couldn't get close enough to hear what. When they were done, I followed him into the elevator. He acted like I wasn't even there. I got off when he got off and pretended to be looking for a room number. He ducked into 510. The sign said Anderson Metallurgy Supplies, LLC. Julio, you did great, but you're only half done. Don't worry, boss. I'll follow him like a shadow. Send me the picture. The moment I hung up, I pulled up Google on my screen. I wasn't too optimistic as I typed. JHN son. I got a ton of name matches, but none matched the photo. Next, I tried typing JCK Soin. No luck. The names were common as dirt. So, I tried Anderson Metallurgy Supplies, LLC, and learned they were one of the largest suppliers of powdered metals to the industry. Whatever that means. They didn't have any names or pictures of employees, so I called the number listed and asked for John Johnson. There is no one here by that name. I'm sorry, I always get those confused. I meant John Jackson. There's no one here by that name either. Do you have the correct company? I must have dialed wrong. Sorry to have bothered you. I stared at the computer trying to think of a way to figure out who that son of a witch actually was when my phone rang again. Boss, it's me. After we hung up, I ducked into the men's room to grab a smoke. Guess who followed me? Jackson Johnson. Only none of those are his real name. Did he see you? Nah, I was in the stall getting ready to light up when he came in. I watched him through the slit between the wall and the door. He took a piss but didn't wash his hands. As he was walking out, a dude my age came in and said, "Hello, Mr. Jensen." He didn't say a word, so I waited until he left and said, "Hey, was that John Jackson?" He said, like, "No man, he's Robert Jensen. Looks like a real prick." You got that right. He bummed a cigarette and I headed outside. Julio, you'd make a great spy. Thanks, boss. Unfortunately, I got called into a logistics meeting which lasted until quitting time and couldn't spend any time on research. That would have to wait until morning. Julio called as I was backing into the garage. He came out the elevator a few minutes before 3, and I followed him across the parking lot to the subway station. The train was pretty crowded, so I hung out at the other end of the car with a bunch of Mexicans speaking Spanish. I think Jensen was afraid to look at us. He sat there with his briefcase in his lap like we were going to steal it. He got off at Logan Square and I followed him home. He lives in the basement apartment of a 2-flat about a block off the boulevard, 2366 North Kimball Avenue. It's got burglar bars but no curtains on the windows so I could see inside. It's a real dump. I had nothing else to do, so I hung out in the gangway next door to see if he went anywhere. About 10 minutes later, he brought out a stack of pizza boxes and threw them in the garbage cart. Then he came out with 2 real big garbage bags. After he went inside, I grabbed them both. That's how my friends steal identities. People throw away too much good shit. Boss, I don't know who Jackson Johnson is, but I've got a whole bunch of legal-looking stuff that says his name is Robert Jensen. Julio, that's good work. I can't talk anymore now. We'll go over everything tomorrow. Right, boss? What I now knew gave me an idea. I walked in and found Janine eating a hamburger and fries on the kitchen table. She didn't seem to have bought anything for me. I ignored the slight and sat down across from her. In order for us to have a rational discussion, I demand several things. Jeanette started to say something, but I told her to wait until I was finished. Then she could talk all she wanted. I'm not stupid. I haven't forgotten the way you phrased your vacation announcement to make me think you were going with a woman from work. So it's time for full disclosure. I need John's last name, address, email address, cell phone number, and where he works. Next, I will need copies of the airplane tickets and address of the mountain chalet he rented. If something happened to you, God forbid, I don't want to have to tell the police I let my wife go somewhere in Colorado, but I don't know where or with whom. Don't get so dramatic. I stopped her again. I speak first, then you. It always pissed my wife off when I wouldn't let her talk over me. I also want the names and phone numbers for the other couples. Now you may answer. He didn't rent the chalet. It belongs to his uncle. And John doesn't have a cell phone. What do you mean? 5-year-old kids have cell phones. Everyone does. Well, he doesn't. So, if I get you all of this, will you stop bullying me and let me have fun? Her face perked up. She smiled. You have one day to get me everything. Why don't you admit you're jealous because I'm going to Colorado? I pounded my fist on the table. I'm not jealous. I'm pissed off because in all the time we were dating, in the 4+ years we've been married, you never once mentioned anything about going skiing anywhere. Now come hell or high water, you want to go skiing in Colorado with some strange guy you met in the cafeteria. And you wonder why I think you're having an affair. I swear I'm not. She screamed. Get me the information. If it checks out, we'll talk. I was so tempted to tell her that her boyfriend gave her a fake name but wanted to see how Jensen would respond. We slept about as far apart as a queen-size mattress would permit. However, Jeanette actually was civil the next morning, and we had coffee together. I got to the office early and paced the floor until Julio arrived. Jeanette was leaving tomorrow, and this was my last chance to save my marriage. Julio brought a large cardboard box into work. He had gone through the bags and threw out the real garbage. The rest was stuff you should never throw out in the trash: financial records, checking account statement, and certified mail from a lawyer's office. He tore the envelopes in half like that is going to stop an identity thief. I went through and taped everything back together that looked important and put them in some kind of order. The first item he handed me was a legal-size envelope sent certified mail to Robert Jensen. That man is being taken to court for not paying child support. He's got like 2 little kids, and he hasn't paid her a dime in over a year. The next item was a bench warrant for failure to appear for non-payment of child support. Julio explained, "The police are so busy they won't even go to your house to pick you up. What they do is put your name in the database. If you have any contact with the cops, even a traffic ticket, they haul you off to jail. So I guess I have to arrange for him to meet some of Chicago's finest." Julio laughed at that. "Good idea, boss." Next came a packet of overdraft notices and checks returned stamped NSF. He got like a dozen notices from the bank before they closed his account. Julio saved the best for last, a printout of the airline reservations. "It's weird. His ticket is round trip, but your wife's is only one way. That is not good. Boss, with the record identifier you can cancel the tickets." I had another idea. I would separate the lovebirds by changing Jensen's seat assignment to the back of the plane and buying the newly vacated one for myself. After we reviewed all of the documents, I did a search of Chicago Tribune archives and learned why Jensen used a fake name. He was a convicted sexual offender. Even though the attack occurred in Denver, Jensen was a Chicagoan, and all 3 daily papers printed the story and his mug shot. There was no doubt it was him. They didn't give too many details because there was a plea agreement to spare the victim from a trial. He pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of sexual assault and was sentenced to 24 months incarceration. While he was a guest at the Gray Bar Hotel, his wife divorced him. A visit to the sex offender registry confirmed his home address. It also warned he had been released after serving only 14 months due to prison overcrowding. The first thing he did was track down his ex-wife and beat her so badly she ended up in a hospital for almost a month. 2 felony convictions, and my wife thinks he's a real nice guy. I took an early lunch and walked down to the courthouse to buy a copy of Jensen's divorce decree. It cost 25 cents a sheet photocopying fee. The filing included a copy of his arrest warrant from the sexual assault. He drugged a young lady he had taken skiing and assaulted her. I also researched do-it-yourself divorce filings at the law library. I found a great template online and I filled it out. For grounds I claimed adultery and attached time-stamped photos of them in the cafeteria, not eating but talking, for a solid hour, like 2 lovers would. My last stop was the Circuit Court of Cook County Domestic Relations Division, where I filed my petition for dissolution of marriage. I had 3 copies made with the official seal and a case number stamped on them. I told my supervisor I would need a few personal days off. He's a good guy and didn't ask a word. Jeanette was making dinner when I walked in. It was a real dinner, not something out of a box. I guess she was trying to put me in a good mood. I hugged her and kissed her. She responded, "Not as good as I would have liked, but anything was better than nothing." Jeanette reached in her purse and took out a folded piece of paper. "Here, I got you everything you wanted. Like I said, John Johnson doesn't have a phone, but I got you his email address. And he's on Facebook. Where does he work? He has a promotion and hasn't received his new business cards yet." I looked at her like she had 2 heads and no brain in either. "And he couldn't tell you the name of his employer?" I opened my laptop and went straight to Google Maps. I entered the address of the chalet. Strike 1. Then I tried the official Denver zoning map. Strike 2. I kept trying every map program I could find. "Honey," I called out, "there seems to be a problem." I ran the chalet's address through 6 different mapping programs plus the assessor's webpage, and they all agree there is no such an address. He must have transposed a digit or something. "What about the tickets?" "He said we get those at the airport." "No, you get the boarding pass at the airport. You know that from when we went to Maui." Next, I called the phone numbers he gave for the other 2 couples. Neither was a working number. I tried doing online searches on their names and came up blank. I had no better luck on Facebook. "Honey, I'm sorry to say, but none of the information Johnson, if that is his real name, gave you is legit. That means there's no way in hell I'm letting you go." Foolish me, I thought she would admit there was something fishy with Johnson. Instead, the next thing I knew, my dinner, while still in the frying pan, came flying by and crashed against the wall. "Too bad, it smelled good." "You're not letting me," she screamed. "Who the hell are you to say where I can and can't go?" "Your husband." "Why are you being so unreasonable? All I'm doing is going skiing with a friend. With a man who has lied to you about everything. You don't even know where you're going." "He didn't lie." Maybe he doesn't want you causing trouble. Is he afraid I'll show up at your love nest and spoil his seduction? Jeanette lost it. Spit was flying out of her mouth as she ranted. Stop saying that. We'll never be anything more than friends. I'm going skiing, and you're not going to stop me. You want to go skiing? Fine. I'll take us skiing. You. With what money? We're broke, remember? I have 2 mayonnaise jars full of silver coins I've been saving since I was a teenager. I was going to spend them on a getaway for our 5th anniversary. I'll cash them in now and either spend the money on a vacation with my wife or paying a divorce attorney. It's your choice. Stop threatening me. I'm not threatening you. I am making a solemn vow, and you know I keep my word. I don't understand. Why don't you trust me? You're a beautiful woman. Johnson's proven himself to be less than a gentleman by not backing off when he learned your husband objects to his wife going on vacation with him. I told you, he's only taking me because the ticket is non-refundable. I'll reimburse him for the ticket and still have enough left for us to go skiing. It's too late. We're leaving tomorrow morning, and I have no way to get a hold of him. Jeanette, I'm not stupid. I will never be cucked by you. Any man who would let his wife do what you want to do is not a real man. Ask yourself how you're going to explain to your parents, family, and friends why you're getting divorced. Don't give me that. I told you I would come home relaxed and make it up to you. Please, I'm begging you. It's not too late to save our marriage. I told you, I can't cancel. I promised John the First would go, and it's too late for him to find someone else. So, you'll keep your promise to a proven liar at the expense of the vow which you made in front of God and all of our friends and families. I keep telling you, nothing is going to happen. It doesn't matter if nothing happens. You made your choice. You picked him over our marriage. I spent the night on the couch. I could hear Jeanette crying in the bedroom. My mind was at war with my heart. The logical part of me wanted to let her get hurt and gloat over the corpse when the inevitable happened, while the emotional component said I should be the knight in shining armor and save my marriage. I spent a sleepless night debating long and hard which I wanted. In the end, I decided to compromise. I was up before the sun. Jeanette ignored me. I really pissed her off when I took a picture of you with my phone. Why did you do that? She demanded. So, the police will have a current picture in case they have to ID your body. She let loose with a string of obscenities. I walked in the bedroom as she was packing her suitcase. If you get on the plane with him, I won't be here when you come back. Our marriage will be over. She gave me a dirty look and said, I know you're not that stupid. Funny, I thought the same about you. I guess we were both wrong. I walked out without kissing her goodbye. I parked my car down the block and watched her leave. Then I went back inside and shaved off my distinctive beard and mustache. Next, I dressed in my black suit with a white shirt and narrow black tie. My wife called this my funeral attire, which I guess was fitting as I was going to witness to the death of our marriage. A pair of sunglasses completed my disguise. I grabbed my briefcase and a couple of suitcases stuffed with my clothes and set off for the last roll of the dice. I was at the gate when Julio called a few minutes after 8. He was outside Jensen's basement apartment. Boss, you aren't going to believe this. They got in a big argument. Your wife wanted to drive to the airport, but the chutz said it was cheaper to take the subway. She even offered to pay for parking, but he told her to keep her money as they would need it when they got to Colorado. I checked her wallet while she was in the bathroom. She had less than $100. I hope she wasn't planning on using our joint credit cards because I canceled them right after I bought my ticket. I wish I could read Jeanette's mind as she had to carry her bags down the stairs to the dark underground labyrinth Chicagoans call the subway. The Blue Line train would be packed with people going to work. Julio thought it odd a man flying to Denver to go skiing in December didn't have a proper winter coat or even gloves as he watched them being jostled by the crowd. Jeanette's dream vacation was already on rocky ground. The ride took a little over half an hour. Julio followed them into the terminal and watched Jensen print out their boarding passes. Fortunately, he didn't look at them very closely and hadn't noticed I changed his seat location right before I bought my ticket. Julio called again to say they reached the TSA checkpoint so he could go no further. Thanks for everything. You've been a huge help. The screener at the X-ray machine flagged Jeanette's carry-on bag. Please step over here, ma'am. Soon a minimum wager was running through her clothes until he found the corkscrew. I hid in the inside zipper pocket when I rifled the bags to see what she had packed. To my relief, there was nothing remotely sexy. The TSA agent read her the riot act and confiscated the corkscrew. The timing would have to be perfect for my plan to work. I had paid for early boarding and was one of the first on the plane. I claimed my center seat. My wife had the window seat. I decided to give her a second chance if she sat next to me so I could show her my evidence. Luck was on my side and the man who had the aisle seat boarded a couple of minutes later. I was happy to see he was a very fit-looking young man. By the buzz cut I assumed he was a college athlete. Slowly but surely the rows ahead of us filled. The stragglers searched the overhead bins for a place to stow their carry-on bags. A couple minutes later the festivities began. Hey, a-hole, you're in my seat. Jensen stuck his ticket in my seatmate's face. Jeanette had turned the other way to force her suitcase into the overhead compartment, but looked back when she heard the commotion. The guy sitting on the aisle said, "Look at the row number. You're way back by the bathrooms." Jensen unleashed a profanity-laden screed about how incompetent the airline was. He capped it off with, "Then move your fat ass to the back of the plane and let me sit next to my girlfriend." Jeanette heard him call her that but did not object. Instead, she said, "John, since he doesn't want to, maybe you should ask the man in the middle to change seats." Without my beard and mustache, she didn't recognize me right away. The sunglasses helped. By now, a flight attendant had pushed her way through the crowd and the purser had come from the aft galley to see what the commotion was. She glowered at Jensen and demanded he take his seat so they could finish boarding the plane. "This flight is packed. Take your assigned seat and we'll see if we can move you after takeoff." I paid to sit next to my girlfriend. Jensen was waving his ticket. Jeanette finally realized I was sitting in the center seat. "What the hell are you doing on my plane? You did this. You're humiliating me." "I'm humiliating you. You're a married woman and this piece of shit is calling you his girlfriend." He only said that to get him to change seats. Her voice reeked of venom. Jeanette stepped into the empty row in front of me and continued her tirade. "You a-hole. I knew you were going to ruin my vacation. I hate you. I hate being married to you." I knew she would be mad, but I must be stupid because I never expected her to say that. I felt like my soul died. I was in shock. I had lost my wife. I grabbed my briefcase and was going to deplane when the damnedest thing happened. Jensen began waving the ticket in my face. Without thinking, I snatched it out of his hand. My voice was trembling when I said, "Tell me whose name is on this ticket." I held the slip of paper for her to read. She got a puzzled look. "John, who is Robert Jensen?" He lunged forward and grabbed the ticket. "No one." He crumpled it up and stuffed it in his pocket. "Sir, you have to take your seat." The purser was losing patience. Jensen got in her face and continued his demand. "That's my seat. Next to my girlfriend. Make him move." That a-hole calling my wife his girlfriend tore me back to reality. Tears were running down my face as I looked my wife square in the eye. "Robert Jensen is your boyfriend. The reason he doesn't want you to know his real name is because the real nice guy has an outstanding arrest warrant for non-payment of child support. I guess he could afford to take my wife on vacation because he wasn't taking care of his own children." I opened my briefcase and handed her a copy of the bench warrant. "You might want to read this." Jeanette looked at the document. Her voice quivered. "John, what's going on? Is that true? While you're at it, you might ask your boyfriend why he didn't buy you a return ticket." I handed her their trip itinerary, showing hers was a one-way only ticket. Jeanette was getting worried. "John, why don't I have a return ticket?" He ignored her plea and continued arguing with the flight attendant. "You're not going to tell me he forgets to tell you he spent 2 years in jail for beating his wife so badly she spent almost a month in the hospital? I have pictures." I handed her a couple of shots of a woman whose face looked like it was hit by a truck. "That real nice guy did this to her." "John, please tell me he's making this up." Jensen didn't answer. He was too busy telling the head flight attendant what he thought of her and her airline. "You better make him move or else." I was on a roll. It's amazing what you can find if you Google someone's real. I drew out the word real name. "Here's the newspaper stories if you don't believe me." I handed her half a dozen articles. "His mugshot is in each one in case you think I'm making this up." "I don't understand." Jeanette was very confused. "Come now, surely he told you he's a registered sex offender." Damn, the plane got quiet as I shouted that. "Tell me if this sounds familiar." He talked a naive young lady into going skiing in Colorado. Instead of hitting the slopes, he drugged her, and he and his buddies took turns assaulting her. She was able to escape after a week in captivity. That earned him 4 years in jail. Jeanette was sobbing. "John, please tell me that didn't happen." He was too busy arguing with the flight attendant and didn't respond. "Try Robert. Robert Jensen. That's his real name." Jensen wasn't the smartest predator, but it finally seemed to have sunken in. I had derailed his plans. He screamed, "I'm going to kill you," and lunged at me. Unfortunately for him, I moved and his fist connected hard with the flight attendant's face. All hell broke loose in the narrow aisle. My seatmate, who it turns out is a starting defensive tackle at a Big Ten college, was on him in a heartbeat and restrained him until Chicago's finest slapped handcuffs on his wrists. The news called him a hero. The airline upgraded him to a seat in first class as a reward. Jensen found out it's a felony for assaulting a member of a flight crew. Surprisingly, telling the police officer you didn't mean to hit the flight attendant, you were trying to kill your girlfriend's husband, didn't elicit a lot of sympathy. I handed Jeanette every last piece of damning evidence I had collected. "I swear to God every word I said is the truth." Jeanette stared at the pile of documents without looking at them. "It's over. Now let's go home." I threw my arms open, praying she would let me embrace her. Instead, my wife ignored the invitation and stood in silence, her head bowed, staring at the floor. She didn't say one word. Not one word. Then it got worse. As the police were hauling Jensen off the plane, I could hear him screaming over and over, "Hey Menzel, I had your wife." My eyes pleaded with her to say he's a liar. That never happened. She turned away in silence. An airline security guard told Jeanette and me that we were being remanded to the custody of the Chicago Police Department for our roles in the melee. Before we moved, I heard a flight attendant say, "Let the gate agent know 3 seats just opened up." I said a prayer of thanks. The other passengers stared at us as we walked by. It seemed like everyone had a cell phone clicking pictures. Now Jeanette knew what it was like to really be humiliated. She didn't say a single word during her walk of shame. I don't think she knew what hit her. I also felt numb. My knees were buckling and I had to concentrate to walk. Somehow I managed to hold my head up. I wanted to tell everyone I did everything I could. Everything went exactly as scripted. Well, almost everything, as I saved Jeanette but lost my wife. The police took us to separate rooms to question us. Homeland Security was there too. I spent the next hour explaining all I knew about Jensen. The detective said, "Wait here," and left me alone with a cup of stale coffee for the next 2 hours while they called their brethren in Denver. I paced back and forth like an inmate while I debated with myself the marriage-ending question. Did my wife have sex with Jensen, or did that son of a witch throw that out to destroy us? If she didn't do it, why didn't she say so? On and on the debate raged. When the detective finally returned, he said they found a very receptive audience in Colorado. Your wife threw up all over herself when I showed her pictures they sent over of the chalet tar paper shack at the back of an auto salvage yard, and what they had in store for her inside. Jensen had 4 friends, the infamous 2 couples, waiting for their arrival. They had prepared the shack with restraints and shackles so this one couldn't run away. We found enough sedatives hidden in his bag to knock out a circus elephant for a week. It didn't take much persuasion to get them to tell their plans for his next victim. It would not have ended well for my wife. They were going to finish her when they were done with her. The detective said all color drained from her face as they read her their confessions. Then she passed out cold. When he was finished, the detective asked if I would like to use the room to talk privately with my wife. From the tone of his voice, I could tell that wasn't a question. "Yes, sir." I clicked open the locks on my briefcase and took out the divorce petition. "What's that?" the detective asked. I told Jeanette I would divorce her if she got on the plane with Jensen. "Have you no compassion? That woman is broken, damn near suicidal. She's in shock from learning how close she came to being murdered. You said you did all of this to save your marriage. Hand her that, and you'll destroy her." I was unmoved. The part of me that loved her had died. She knows she messed up big time. Right now, you're the good guy. You pulled off an incredible plan to rescue your wife. You're a regular Liam Neeson. You can't walk away from her. I broke silence. I planned to give these to her at their love nest. However, looking at the current situation, even after all she did, if Jeanette says I'm sorry, I will tear these up today. But I still plan to divorce her. I give you my word. But you can't tip her off. You've got my word. A minute later, he led my wife into the room. I got one quick glimpse before she buried her face in her hands. She looked like death and stunk of vomit. She collapsed into the chair and began sobbing. The detective lorded over her as he said, "Mrs. Menzel, I've been a police officer for over 29 years, and what you did was the most stupid thing I ever heard of. If a person ever deserved to be murdered, it's you. You should thank God with every breath you take for your husband and for every heartbeat he gave you. You owe him for the rest of your life." He closed the door on the way out. The only sound was my wife sucking air in between sobs. Not a effing word. Not a thank you. Not an I'm sorry. Nothing. Finally, after about 5 minutes, I got tired of waiting for her to talk. "You sold out our marriage for a ski trip worth less $1,500. $1,500. That's all our dreams were worth. After this, how could I ever trust you not to leave me for the next shiny bauble?" My mind was pleading for her to talk. She said not a word. Tears streamed down my face as I waited for her to say something. Anything. When I couldn't take it anymore, I said, "If at any time you said I'm sorry, I would have torn this paper up. I can't wait any longer." I handed her a copy of the divorce decree. Jeanette screamed so loud when she read it the detective ran back in to make sure she was okay. I already packed my clothes. "Anything I left behind you can donate or throw away." I handed her my keys to our, make that her, apartment and walked away. I never looked back. Next time I met her was at the court. The court ordered us to enter counseling. I reluctantly went on with it, but I never intended to reconcile with her. During the sessions, the counselor was able to see how dumb my ex-wife was. As I planned, the sessions failed, and after 7 months I was a free man. I never heard from Jeanette again. Not that I wanted to. Jensen was charged with conspiracy with intent to harm a person. He is still serving his time. I hope they keep him there forever. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.